The Galactic Council had assembled in emergency session, their crystalline chambers humming with translated conversations from a dozen worlds. At the center of it all stood Commander Zeftal of the Hegemony, his massive frame encased in what his species called the Eternal Shell, armor forged from quantum-locked neutronium and powered by miniature stars. "Counselors!" Zeftal's voice boomed through the translation matrix. "The human infestation has spread to 17 systems. Their primitive kinetic weapons cannot penetrate our defenses. We propose immediate annexation of their territories." The assembled delegates murmured agreement. The Hegemony's eternal shells had never been breached in 3 millennia of galactic conquest. Each suit cost more than most planetary defense budgets and required a century to construct. They were, by every measure of galactic science, absolutely impenetrable. Elder Crix of the Tribunal leaned forward, her 4 eyes gleaming. "The humans are resourceful, Commander. Perhaps negotiation? Negotiation is for equals," Zeftal interrupted. "These mammals have barely mastered nuclear fusion. Their largest vessels are constructed from mere steel and ceramics. What possible threat could they pose?" Unknown to the Council, 8-year-old Marcus Chen was at that very moment sitting in his grandmother's workshop on Luna Colony, surrounded by the detritus of 1,000 projects. Nana Chen had been a materials engineer before the first alien contact, and her workshop remained a wonderland of human ingenuity. 3D printers hummed alongside traditional welding torches, and exotic metamaterials sat next to coffee cans full of screws. Marcus held up a holographic tablet displaying news footage of the Hegemony forces. The alien soldiers looked imposing in their mirror-bright shells, walking through human weapons fire without so much as a scorch mark. "Nana," Marcus said, his voice carrying that particular mixture of curiosity and determination that made adults nervous, "why don't our guns work on them?" His grandmother looked up from her current project, a new type of self-repairing hull material. "Well, sweetheart, their armor is made from something called neutronium. It's incredibly dense and strong. But everything breaks if you hit it right, doesn't it?" Marcus tilted his head, studying the alien armor's design. "Remember when I broke your unbreakable wrench?" Nana Chen chuckled, remembering how her grandson had managed to snap the quantum steel tool by using it as a lever in precisely the wrong way. "That's true, but this is different. This armor is held together by forces we barely understand." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then wandered over to his grandmother's material scanner. He'd been playing with it since he could walk, much to his parents' dismay and his grandmother's delight. The device could analyze molecular structures and simulate stress patterns. "Can I see how their armor works?" he asked. 3 days later, as Hegemony forces prepared to assault the Martian defense platform, Marcus was putting the finishing touches on what his grandmother called the most ridiculous physics experiment I've ever witnessed. The device looked like a child's toy, which, in fairness, it essentially was. Marcus had constructed it from spare parts, a micro-resonator from an old communications array, a harmonic amplifier from a broken musical synthesizer, and a focusing lens from a discarded microscope. The entire contraption was held together with printed brackets and liberal amounts of duct tape. "The resonance frequency should be right. There," Marcus muttered, making final adjustments with the concentrated focus only children could muster. The Mars Defense Platform's commander, Colonel Sarah Hayes, was reviewing the hopeless tactical situation when her aide burst into the command center. "Ma'am, you need to see this. There's a kid on the comm from Luna Colony. Says he has something that can help." Colonel Hayes almost dismissed it, but desperate times called for desperate measures. When Marcus appeared on screen, she nearly cut the connection anyway, until she noticed the woman behind him. Dr. Elena Chen? Hayes recognized one of Earth's most respected materials scientists. "What's going on?" "Colonel," Dr. Chen said carefully, "my grandson believes he's found a weakness in the Hegemony armor. I've run the calculations and, well, it's theoretically possible." Marcus held up his jury-rigged device. "It makes a special sound," he explained with the matter-of-fact tone children used for the most extraordinary things. "The armor is super strong, but it's like a bell, if you ring it just right. The quantum bonds maintaining the neutronium matrix become unstable," Dr. Chen finished. "The armor essentially tears itself apart from the inside." Colonel Hayes stared. "You're telling me an 8-year-old built a weapon that can defeat the most advanced armor in the galaxy?" "Well," Marcus said, "I had help. And YouTube. The hegemony assault began at 800 standard. 12 eternal shell warriors teleported directly onto the platform's command deck, their armor gleaming with reflected starlight. Energy shields flickered around them as human weapons fire pinged harmlessly off their surfaces. Commander Zeftal himself led the assault, confident in his species' technological supremacy. Surrender, humans. Your primitive weapons cannot. The sound hit them like a physical blow, not heard but felt, resonating through the quantum structure of their armor. It started as a low hum, then climbed in pitch until it reached a frequency that made the neutronium itself vibrate in impossible ways. Marcus watched from Luna through the tactical display as the unbreakable armor began to crack like eggshells. The quantum locks failed in cascade, and 3 millennia of technological superiority crumbled in 17 seconds. The Galactic Council's emergency session the following day had a very different tone. How? Elder Crix asked simply. Colonel Hayes, now serving as humanity's temporary representative, smiled. You forgot something important about humans. We don't just build tools, we teach our children to build better ones. She activated the holographic display showing Marcus in his grandmother's workshop, still tinkering with his device. You assume that because we're young, we're limited by conventional thinking. But our children don't know what's supposed to be impossible. Commander Zeftal, now stripped of his shattered armor, spoke with considerably less arrogance. The child? How did he know? He didn't, Colonel Hayes replied. He just asked the right question. What if we're hitting it wrong? Then he spent 3 days figuring out how to hit it right. The negotiations that followed were notably more equitable. The hegemony's expansion was quietly shelved, and several council members began discreet inquiries about human education methods. Back on Luna, Marcus had already moved on to his next project. His grandmother found him in the workshop surrounded by blueprints and spare parts. What are you building now, sweetheart? Marcus looked up with a grin that contained multitudes of mischief and possibility. Well, if their armor was that easy to break, I wonder what else might not be as strong as they think. Dr. Chen smiled and quietly began documenting everything. Something told her the galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place.